In this video we want to talk about continuous professional development, and in particular look at some of the implementation issues and the policy of CPD itself. So good CPD, good continuous professional development practice and policy can be applied within organizations. So it's important to first of all get a training scheme which reflects the requirements of the organization and then implement it within the organization. And of course there are prerequisites to doing that. For a start, the organization must want it, but also the employees and the managers who are expected to participate in this type of development, they must want it as well. So a good starting point is to appoint a CPD coordinator or director of education. In other words, there should be some office or some title associated with the person who's charged with implementing and designing a continuous professional development package within organizations. Now this could be a training program that runs once a week or once a month. It could have materials for attendees to study or to consider or to discuss, or it could have practical demonstrations of how to use particular tools or the development of certain skills. Whatever it is, perhaps it was best facilitated if there is someone in charge, someone who coordinates the activity. It's important to establish aims for CPD policy. Without aims, it's drifting, or it will drift. Without aims, it will not achieve anything. It will perhaps be confusing and contradictory, or a waste of resource. So it's important to have clear thinking about what is required from the CPD policy. For example, safeguards towards professional standards. Looking at professional standards, what's meant by professional standards? How do managers work and present themselves within the working environment? How do they relate to the employees, perhaps to the line employees or to the line managers? How do senior managers present themselves? What's their demeanor? And it's developing skills and developing perspectives of how they should present themselves and how they should behave, and what's meant by professional standards, and it's developing this that CPD can address. This is what CPD can do. So it's looking towards the development of professional standards and the maintenance of good professional standards. It should ideally be developed in line with increased competitiveness. Companies face competition. Nowadays they face competition from around the world, and other companies right throughout the world, they want to participate in the market and make sales in the market. So all companies must look over their shoulders. They must watch out for the competitors. They must take into account the fact that they are not alone. They are in a competitive environment, and therefore whatever skills they develop should enable them to meet that competitive pressure and deal with it effectively. In other words, they should win. They should win because their employees, their managers, at all grades, right throughout the organization, are trained in good professional standards. They're efficient, they understand the tasks, because it's been explained and it's clear. So a good continuous professional development package will enable the employees at all levels to be more effective and thereby take on the competition. To develop employees with competencies to continuously develop knowledge and skills. There should be a culture of developing skills and developing understanding of the importance of their behavior, their application to the tasks that are set, and also having the technical skills to deliver those tasks and deliver them to a high quality. So the development package should develop competencies within the workforce, and these competencies will result in better quality, more productivity. In other words, the company has become more effective in the marketplace. Ensure employees commit to CPD over a certain amount of hours annually. It's important, if there is a development package of this nature, that the employees, again at all levels, should make some sort of commitment to attend or to participate. And that should be noted, and it should be programmed into their working lives. It may be that they're going to meet every last Friday of every month to discuss some issue. And they may only meet for a couple of hours. They may meet over an extended lunch break and discuss some issue. But there is a commitment, that's the point, and everyone understands the importance of this type of development. Implement a wide range of CPD activities suited to learner and organisation needs. There's this idea of skills which are resident within the organisation, in-house skills. And should an employee leave, those skills are no longer useful outside. They are developed entirely for the organisation. Other skills may be more generic and may be applied outside. So general schooling, when we go to school as a child or as a teenager, we're taught, generally speaking, generic skills. We're taught how to read, write, arithmetic, science, and so on. And these are general skills that it's good to have as individuals in living in this day and age, or indeed in any day and age. The point is, these are generic. Sometimes companies can train personnel in particular skills which only really apply within that organisation. And once the employees leave the organisation, these specific skills are no longer required outside. So it's important that CPD develop both skills that will help the organisation to develop new products, to improve quality, and to compete with the various competitors around the world who might be looking for a share of their market, but also develop the personnel in a wider sense to have greater understanding of the culture in which they're working, the culture of the business, greater understanding of technical issues so that they're able to think around problems, but they themselves are enhanced by having this experience. So it's general education as well as quite specific education, and that really should be the aim of a good CPD program. It's important to monitor the employee progress and achievements. If there's no monitoring, then it's difficult to say whether the program is successful or not. It's as simple as that. It's important that the program is monitored and that the employees' feedback both sought and understood and taken seriously. It's important that the programs do not waste time, that they are well planned, well delivered, that they are engaging, they want the participants want to be there. So it's important that there is some sort of feedback, not necessarily assessments, but feedback which may be in the form of interviews or group discussions, and where some facilitator is able to work out whether the particular programs of development that have been delivered, whether they have been effective, useful, enjoyable, whether they have been appreciated by the attendees. CPD activities involve workplace learning and professional courses. It's important to remember that in addition to any in-house training that companies may choose to deliver, there are also professional courses which are available. So, for example, accountants will have their own professional examinations. And these are a good blend of practical and more conceptual work, looking at issues but also looking at the requirements of working in the accountancy profession in a modern sense. It's not just accountants, engineers have it, and all sorts of types of activity may be covered by professional bodies. So the work of the CPD personnel within an organization is augmented or supplemented by these professional courses, and it would be good to get the employees to subscribe to those professional courses, to join in and benefit as members of perhaps professional bodies. As I said, there are many: marketing, purchasing and supply, logistics, accountancy, engineering. There are many professional bodies which will benefit employees, and they should be considered. The following are some of the conditions which ensure effective development of CPD activities. First of all, understanding of learning theories. It's important that the people charged with delivering CPD activity should understand learning theories. How do people learn? What is the best way of delivering a certain set of ideas or a certain set of skills? What's the best way of doing it? Is it to discuss it, to show a video, to do a demonstration? How exactly should it be worked out? So it's important that the personnel who are charged with delivering CPD activities understand learning theory as well, understand what is the best way of delivering that material. And there should be some assessment. As I said in this one earlier, or in other videos, the assessment doesn't have to be a 3-hour written examination. That's the old days. Learning could be assessed through group discussions or individual interviews or observations, looking at how well people perform activities when they have been demonstrated and discussed as a part of a development package, and then seeing how the individuals perform on their own, monitoring it, in other words. And that could be a form of assessment, but it's important to have assessment to see how effective the package has been. If the assessment is not going well, it could mean that the package was badly designed, that the development package needs more attention. Look at learning styles as well. Some people learn well by reading and making notes. Others learn by doing. Others might learn after reflecting on a particular learning event. They don't seem to learn during the event so much as deeper learning comes after reflecting and doing it again. A greater understanding is achieved. But look at the learning styles and try to work out how can the package of skills or knowledge that's going to be delivered in the continuous professional development program, see how that can be tailored to meet the learning styles of those attending. Look at learning opportunities as well. Learning opportunities are not just those presented in a room during a development program. Learning opportunities perhaps are available all the time. We learn at work. We learn by observing. And the more observant we are and the more we can think about what's happening around us and what we see, the more we understand it, the more we learn. So it may be the case that the proper use of CPD is to get participants to reflect on learning opportunities, to make them explicit so that they understand the learning opportunities and see what insights can be gained from that reflection that will help the participant make sense of future requirements and future developments. So learning opportunities are around us all the time. It's a question of trying to pick up on these learning opportunities, to understand them, and then to reflect upon them later so as to have a deeper understanding, and we can carry that knowledge with us. But remembering also that we are in a changing environment. Technology is changing rapidly. The introduction of robotics and the introduction of precision machine and computer-aided manufacturing, and we have all sorts of changing environments within the workplace, not just the manufacturing section, but in the office section. It seems to cut across all our lives, and it's important that CPD equip the personnel within the organization to deal with changes, to make sure that they are up to date and they are able and capable of participating in the use of this technology. If that's not the case, the company will suffer a competitive disadvantage and its long-term prospects would not look good. Now, understanding of learning theories. Well, cognitive theories play a key role in developing effective CPD courses and training. Cognitive theories, simply thinking about particular theories, trying to look at some very general statements and see, do they apply in the context of the organization, and how can we apply them, and how do they fit? How do we think about those theories in the context of what we're doing in our daily lives? So see if the CPD training courses can take broader theories and use those theories to explain what we're doing, so we have a greater understanding of our role within the companies. We've been trained not just in terms of a certain set of skills to make something or to change something, but also we're taught how to understand the context in which we're working. Understanding of learning theories ensure CPD training is developed to meet the needs of the learners. It's important that when CPD courses are designed, outcomes should be identified. What is it that the learners should achieve over the course of the CPD training? How should the training change the participants? What additional skills or competencies should they have at the end? So it's important to try to work that out right at the start, so that the training program itself has its own set of objectives, and it's aiming at something, it's aiming to achieve something. It's not just open-ended, drifting along. It is targeted. Learning theories provide an understanding of different learning styles, which help the learner explore different learning opportunities. It's important that we look at the learning styles of people. People learn differently. Some, as I said earlier, want to read a book and learn from that. Other people want to make something and do something with their hands and see something physical and something tactile and physical that they're going to develop. So people are different, but try to work out how to group similar-minded individuals and try to work out programs that will enable them to develop their interests and their skills in line with their particular orientation. If they're learning by doing and they want to use their hands and they're quite practical individuals, then develop that. Develop it further. Look at ways in which they could be extended, perhaps by the introduction of machinery or computers, or just looking at higher order skills that they may wish to attain. Some people want to learn from books and learn by reading and thinking. Develop that and see where it can fit in terms of the overall objectives of the organization. How can all of this effort help the organization? Now, learning needs. Well, learning needs differ depending on career level, job role, place of work. Learning needs are quite high in some parts of the organization. For example, where technology is changing rapidly, there is a big need for learning to make sure that the staff are properly equipped and trained in the new technology. That's important. Other job roles may not be so demanding, but may require development in terms of understanding the organization, understanding the importance of the roles within the organization, and understanding the importance of commitment to quality and health and safety and the general environment of the business. So there are different learning needs right throughout the organization, some highly specialized, some quite general. What brings all together is that there is a need for continuous development, continuous updating. Some, as I said, highly concentrated, very technical. Others, not so technical, but important nonetheless. Important for the day-to-day running of the business and for that health and safety and community issues that apply within the business. So CPD must consider updating and developing technical knowledge and specific skill sets. If the technical knowledge is not updated, then the personnel within the organization will become, by definition, outdated. And if they're outdated, the competitors will have an advantage. Identify skills required to specific individuals. For example, communication, interpersonal, technical, social, negotiation skills. These are the type of skills I mentioned earlier in terms of the more general skills that we need in terms of, if you like, the community that we find ourselves working in terms of the organization. We work in an organization which is really a type of community, and in order to facilitate the efficiency and the way of life of that organization, It's important to have good communication skills. It's important to have good interpersonal skills, that people can relate to each other. They can see their differences and accommodate the differences. And they accommodate the differences easily. But they also have good technical knowledge. They understand how the different processes are linked. There might be a social issue where sometimes they just want to simply have a chat about football or about something outside the work environment. They relate to each other. So there are different skills that are important within organizations which give the organization cohesion. It brings the organization together. Developing the individual for promotion opportunities, for example managerial positions, that's also important. That's a learning need. Sometimes organizations, they need to promote individuals. There are new roles, new tasks, and they need someone to champion that. They need a manager, a new manager. Now they could recruit from the outside, but sometimes they want to look at the internal workforce. It's good for morale for a start within the organization, but they need to develop that person. They need to make sure the person has the skills and the competencies and the abilities to deliver what's required. And to that end, there may be a training program required. And also enhancing specialized capabilities or specialist capabilities. Some highly talented individuals may work within the organization and have very particular skills. But no matter how competent those people are, the chances are they will need continuous development. The world does not stand still. So they need more development. So there is more need for CPD. Adult learning through CPD require a different approach to learning. The purpose of learning is relevant and directed towards practical application. We think of learning at different stages. We think of children at school. We think of people at colleges and universities, and we think of people going through apprenticeships and training programs. We think of people who have missed all of that and simply joined the organization or joined a company and is doing particular tasks. But CPD requires a different approach to each one. Their backgrounds and their skills and their abilities and what they know, indeed what they don't know, are all different. So to make CPD effective, it's important to be able to group individuals according to their current skill sets and then move on from there. And a different group will have a different skill set and design a program for those to move on as well. But they're moving on from different stages or different levels because they have different experiences. So one CPD training program will not fit all. One size does not fit all here. They need specific training programs to enable them to build on their current expertise. Learners participate in CPD as a voluntary activity. The process of learning is self-directed and self-motivated. Good CPD programs should invite participants. So the participants should be there not because the company said they should be there, but because they want to be there. They want to be there, they want to learn, they want to develop, they are interested. If that's the case, the program will be more successful. They are not fighting the program. They're there because they want to be there. That means they are self-directed, they're self-motivated. They are keen to learn. So it should be a voluntary activity. They should not be forced into CPD. Learning for adults should build on their experience and education. For example, CPD activities should be practical, problem orientated and facilitate rather than didactic. Didactic means taught. They should not be taught everything. They should be problem orientated. They should be challenging. They should be relevant to their experience, and this will engender more enthusiasm for the program. They will be more interested because it's building on their experience and their particular orientation. In other words, what they do and how they go about their tasks. It's built on that. So it's more practical, and it's solving problems. It's looking at issues, trying to come up with good solutions. It's not going into a classroom and sitting and taking notes while an instructor or a teacher or a lecturer or whoever writes notes on a blackboard. It's not like that. It should be more engaging. It should be more fluid in terms of the learning style. It should be problem orientated. It should involve discussions and looking for best solutions, and it should build on their interests so that they participate more enthusiastically in the program. Learning opportunities. Well, employees, adult learners, must be provided with opportunities to learn. So I say they must be provided. Ideally, they should be provided. And that's watering down what we've got on the slide at the moment, but it's watering it down in a way which suggests that these programs should be made available and every effort should be made to get participation. It's in the interest of the organization to have a more cognitive, a more caring, a more thought-provoking group of employees. But it's also in the interest of the employees to develop their own skills and competencies, not only to work more effectively within the organization, but to give them opportunities to perhaps to look outside of the organization for even better employment. And that's how we create a dynamic economy. That's how we create economic growth, by individuals moving from one company to the next, individuals moving from one layer within a company to a higher layer, individuals acquiring more skills and more abilities and thereby gaining promotion. So employees should be encouraged to engage in CPD activities, and companies should be encouraged to provide these activities. CPD activities must be based on appropriate learning aims, content and processes. I say appropriate, that's the word here. Appropriate means that they are aimed at some particular tasks within the organization. But having looked at these particular tasks, there may be a generic component that perhaps all organizations face those problems. So participants in CPD programs who have looked at these particular problems will have generic skills. They will be able to go to other organizations and take what they've learned with them. However, some companies will want specific problems associated with their own work and with their own issues. They'll want these problems solved, and these are quite specific to the organization and may not be transferable, may not be capable of being moved to the next organization. So CPD activities must be based on appropriate learning aims, content and processes. Ideally, there should be some learning aims identified. What is the outcome of the CPD program? When will the personnel delivering the CPD program know it's been effective? How do we gauge whether it's been effective? There should be some aims, something to check at the end to see that the program has been delivered and that it has been successful. The CPD activities must be accessible day or evening, weekdays, weekends, location, venue, and cost of courses. In other words, it should be provided when most convenient for the participants. The materials used should be provided by the employer, so as to encourage participation and make sure that the participants are not too much out of pocket by attending the course, which is ultimately going to benefit the organisation. It should be located conveniently so that they're able to get to it easily, and any costs that are involved should be dealt with by the organisation, and this should encourage greater participation. Now, the changing environment. Well, CPD is driven by the changing professional environment. Organisations must be able to meet the changing demands that will impact on skill development. I've said several times in the course of the last few slides that we live in a competitive world. We live in a world where technology is changing rapidly, but trading patterns are also changing rapidly. And if we are to survive, we must have effective training. We must have a workforce that are able to compete with other workforces throughout the world, and also have an expertise in the use of the technology for the benefit of the organisation. And employees who are able to do that will find themselves more marketable in the labour market and should be able to command better pay and conditions. For example, there is now a greater need to develop technical skills in order to meet the demands of the digital age. Well, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, this was not an issue. Now, it's important that employees not only have the very basics of computing and be able to use office facilities, but they must perhaps have detailed knowledge of specialized packages, specialized programs, and some programs may be written entirely for that organization. So it's important for the employees to understand the requirements of those packages, and to do that they must be kept up to date with developments, not just have a good working knowledge of the core of the program, but they should also have an expertise in the wider use of the program, and perhaps that comes through training packages. CPD policies must address changes in the environment and assess impacts this will have on professional development. Now, changes in the environment can be all sorts of environment issues here. It could be the fact that the world is changing, the environment is changing. Mankind has made an impact on the environment. Unfortunately, it's not a good impact. We see climatic change and we see all sorts of issues. But we should be aware of what is happening here, and perhaps CPD could address issues about the importance of recycling and the importance of managing the environment, sustainability. We could take a different interpretation of environment and talk about the environment within which the individual finds him or herself working, within the organization, for example, and talk about the way in which that environment is changing, the way technology has changed the workplace, the way the company is designed, the way functions have been merged or changed. And this will prepare the individual for change, so that when change comes about there will not be a lot of resistance. They will be greater understanding that the change is required and perhaps the change is inevitable. Management of change is an issue within companies. The employees resent change by and large. They know how to do the tasks currently and they're reluctant to make changes if possible. But perhaps through continuous CPD activities, continuous professional development activities, they're able to understand the need for change and embrace it. That's a second interpretation of environment. And the third one is the environment in which we find ourselves as a community within a company. We know the world is changing. We know that the governments or governments throughout the world, that companies are more aware of the need for health and safety, for diversity in the workplace, for more understanding of individuals and of individual requirements. There's a greater awareness that the companies are a part of the wider society, and CPD can go a long way in helping individuals to understand that. So these are some of the issues involved in the implementation and policy of continuous professional development. And that's all we're going to deal with in this session. So let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.